Lads and gentlemen, welcome to the show. Wow, title credit, that was fancy, wasn't it? A new theme song. That was made by Brock A Music. Go check him out. He is a composer I met a few years ago when he was born. That is my brother, so check Brock A Music. That's BrockAye out on Spotify or YouTube or whatever music platform you listen to. He's probably on it. Moving on, Harrison is not here. We were supposed to hold this podcast on Thursday, to which Harrison unfortunately could not make. We were supposed to hold it right now on Sunday, the 9th of August. But again, Harrison pulled out. The reason I'm shooting this alone is that we have an interview coming up on Tuesday with Daniel Ebb, the Deputy Leader of the Opportunity Party. That's amazing. Yay. He is going to tell us about himself and about the party, and we'll see how that goes. So I figure, why not just shoot alone? So we can get this out to you and then work on the interview, which is probably a bit more important. So you've got me today, unfortunately for you. Why not start with a fun story that's close to home? You've probably seen this. It's made global headlines. Dunedin City Councillor Jo Gaylor. She replaced an outgoing councillor who unfortunately he passed away, Jules Radich, the former mayor of Dunedin. We had a by-election, and Jo Gaylor, who is a right-wing councillor, not that it particularly matters in this story, assumed his place after the by-election. So she has made global headlines for joining a Dunedin City Council meeting from her bathroom. Here is from BBC News Pidgin. So BBC News Pidgin, Pidgin being a version of English that is spoken by, I believe, Jamaican migrants in the UK. Unfortunately, it is not a language used to communicate with pigeon. The animal, the bird. I've tried. They don't understand me more than my normal accent. But BBC News Pidgin says the mayor of Dunedin point out the laundry in frame, but Councillor Jo Gaylor they more concerned about her own visibility as she reply, "You fit see me." Dem elect Miss Gaylor on May 2026, and she aimed to lead by example, according to her profile on the City Council website. So that's a bit of an embarrassment nationally and locally, but you got to give it to Jo. She's put Dunedin back on the world stage. I mean, BBC News Pidgin, you couldn't really ask for a bigger platform. Dunedin after the snow. It's been a big week for Dunedin. We've had snow on Tuesday, completely snowed in, and that made global headlines for madmen skiing down Baldwin Street. That was a choice. I think the friction allowed them to go slow enough, but thank heaven that the notorious bin incident, the bin incident in which two students raced down in bins only to be collected by, I believe, a truck, was did not reoccur, was not replicated. But that made global headlines, the snow in Dunedin, and then now Jo Gaylor's made sure to keep us on the front page by joining a council work call from her bathroom. At least she's showing up. That's better than some councillors. A lot of councillors, that's better than. Even if it's from her bathroom. Fortunately, you just see her face and some washing hanging on her shower, I guess. Big week for Dunedin. Up Dunedin. Shall we jump into some real stories? Where should we start? Let me look at this. Let's start with the New Zealand First policy. Let's get on to something a bit more dull so we can jump it back up later. New Zealand First policy. So they've sort of got a few points. I've lumped it into 5 areas they're sort of tackling, which would be cost of living, which is kind of market competition, economy, which is also sort of resources, savings for families, constitution and electoral reform, and sort of they've got a regional sort of heritage thing, but I've only lumped one thing in there. Didn't really fit anywhere else. So First of all, breaking up the gentailers. So they want to split power companies so they can't control both electricity generation and pricing. So we currently have a few big power generators, Meridian, Contact Energy, etc. And we also have retailers, Meridian, Contact Energy, etc. You've also got Flick, whatnot, other little companies in there. But what happens is the generators also are the retailers of the power. So they are able to charge a higher price because they give their retail arms. I may not have the story 100% correct, but I believe they give their retail arm a better rate so they can charge cheaper through their own company, but it is still more expensive than in a free competitive market. So the right particularly doesn't like that. The right, much of the right, not all parties, but at least New Zealand First, think that breaking up the gentailers would be a productive thing so that they would probably focus on generation, and when it comes to retail, they'd have to offer the same price to all power companies so that there would be a freer market and higher competition. Similarly, they want to break up the supermarket duopoly. They want to end foodstuffs and Woolworths' 80+% grip on groceries, citing the Commerce Commission's findings of $1 million a day in excess profits. They haven't really said how they would do this. I suppose breaking up would insinuate that they split the companies into small firms. So I guess you would see New World as an independent supermarket. You would see, I guess, Fresh Choice, Pack and Save, everything independent. But they probably have to split Woolworths up a bit more, I guess, because they've only got the one major brand. And we'll see if that works. I mean, obviously the supermarket duopoly is a horrendous system that has that preys on lower but also middle New Zealand at the expense of the population, and they are allowed to do this by our government system. So that's pretty unideal. So I suppose any idea is an idea, but would the supermarket duopoly being split up result in lower prices? You'd hope so. We're too small a company. That's the argument. That's why Aldi's not here. We're too small a country with too little competition. You can see Mum Dami in New York is introducing New York City owned supermarkets to, I believe, undercut the market by 30%. So it'd be an interesting case study for New Zealand, particularly the left-wing parties in future. Let's jump into economy and resources. They want to return 50% of mining royalties to the regions. So rather than going straight into the government's coffers, if you have a mine in your region, 50% of the royalty, which I guess is the government, the percentage of the profit that the government takes, is returned to the region. They want a special economic zone at Marsden Point, so that would be lower taxes, lower regulations to establish likely industry and also a big port there. I think they New Zealand First is particularly keen on both starting the refinery back up as well as making Marsden Point the main port for Auckland, essentially, is what they're trying to do, even if they don't explicitly say that. Because obviously the ports of Auckland are restricted from the fact that Auckland City is right there. New Zealand First, last election they proposed expanding a rail line to Marsden Point. National hasn't particularly supported that. It's in the works, but it's kind of shelved, but it's there to make New Zealand First happy. But we'll see what happens there. Future-proofing fuel security, that's the same thing. Invest $1 billion in a national subsurface development survey to map the energy, geothermal, CO2 storage sites. Okay, maybe that is different. They want to back a New Zealand-owned bank, so they want to buy back BNZ, Bank of New Zealand, from the Australian National Bank, so that we have our own competitor. I suppose all our major banks are owned out of Australia, so Is it going to be efficient? Probably not. Is it going to be Kiwi? Well, it's going to be government at least. Is it going to charge lower fees, or is its inefficiencies going to make it a more expensive Kiwi option, or at least functional one like Kiwi Bank? We have Kiwi Bank. Kiwi Bank is more of a retail bank. It doesn't store its, and I may be wrong, it doesn't store its own bond. Does it not buy government bonds? It doesn't have the same financial backing. It's not a full-size bank. It's got the store at the front, but not the vault behind, basically. So they still have to loan money from other banks, I believe. Savings and family support. They want Kiwi Saver generation. They want to make Kiwi Saver enrolment compulsory at birth. Every child will compulsorily be enrolled in Kiwi Saver with an automatic $1,000 contribution from the government for any New Zealand citizen. They will have a Kiwi Kids grant. They want to support NZ citizens raising their first 3 children through the first 3 years of each child's life. Constitutional and electoral reforms, referendums on Māori seats. They want to disestablish Auckland's independent Māori statutory board. And they also want citizens-only voting. Funnily enough, New Zealand, I believe there are only 7 countries in the world that aren't citizen-only voting. New Zealand being, I think, the most lax of them. You only have to be a permanent resident and you can vote. I think even residents can vote. Most countries, you have to wait quite a few years before you can vote. Here, it's quite lax. Well, actually, most countries you have to be a citizen to vote. So New Zealand First thinks if you're going to vote, you should be a citizen. I think the sort of theory here is if you're deciding where the ship is steering and most of the people on that ship are tied to it, it's not fair that you get to jump to another ship if it goes towards an iceberg. I guess if you have too many people on residency, New Zealand First thinks, I guess too many people who can leave easily can steer the ship the wrong way, and if they realize they messed up, they can leave. So their opinion is that to make it more fair for citizens, though it would disenfranchise non-citizens who live here and pay taxes, they should have citizen-only voting. So you've got a dual sort of morality there. Is, do you believe in taxation, no taxation without representation? That's obviously the ideology behind the founding of the United States. So I guess if you're here, you would be able to vote because you are being taxed. You deserve to vote your representation. Or do you prioritize the people who have the citizenship and live here, live here on citizenship, basically? The people who, most people on citizenship only have one, who don't have anywhere else to go, I suppose. Regional heritage is the only current policy there is to complete the Christchurch Cathedral. They want to allocate an extra $15 million. So I guess that's kind of a grab at Cantabrian votes here in Otago. Obviously, Canterbury's the rival, so maybe a waste of money, but honestly, that's obviously the staple of the rebuild. They've just gotten their stadium, their museum's nearly done, I believe. Most of town has been rebuilt. It's pretty sensible to get that thing finished. The debate over whether to finish it or not is over. I mean, it's been under construction for so long. It's time they just get that done and restore even further the pride that Christchurch deserves for coming back from that. It's just insane. Let's stick with New Zealand first. Let's jump onto the controversy around Winston Peters, which you definitely heard. During a general debate on COVID, Green MP Lawrence Shunan heckled Peters, asking if he had been vaccinated. Peters told him, "Go back to your own country," and later doubled down, calling him a loudmouth who can't even speak the language properly. So the problem is that Shunan was, let's give some context first. Shunan was born in Tanjin. He came here in 1994 as a child. He grew up in East Auckland, 32 years as a New Zealander. Then he was legally elected as MP. And then he's told to go home by the Foreign Minister. So Uh, he's lived in New Zealand his whole life. Winston Peters tells him to go home. That's obviously um, that's racism, I guess. No, not I guess. It's racist. It's racist, but I'm not sure why Peters felt the need to say that. Really, in his 2017 campaign launch, he said two wrongs don't make a white. And more recently, St. Jones said the butter chicken tsunami thing. I mean, it's really just stuff that New Zealand First can probably stay away from. And they've already got the votes from the people who would find that attractive. It's not a sensible electioneering thing. It's kind of just an old man rant. But, I mean, Peters is doing what Peters does. He's manufacturing a race-based distraction. He's bringing attention to himself. Luxon decided not to sack him. He didn't even tell him off, probably because Luxon's a weak leader and Peters could run rings around him. But I guess the only real check on a minister's conduct is the Prime Minister's political will. So the discussion to be had there is, what can we let ministers get away with without being punished? It's also sort of a free speech issue. I mean, a minister sees something stupid, it should tank their electoral successes. But at the same time, if nothing's done, like now, I don't know. I mean, Winston saying things like that doesn't really throw people off Winston. I mean, people who would support a comment like that mostly are, I guess, MAGA New Zealand. Make New Zealand great again crowd. Mnzga. He's already got them, so it just seems silly. But why not let him say it so we can all say that that's stupid? But then if he isn't losing support because of it, I don't know. Maybe we should draw the line. I don't know the answer, but it seems pretty embarrassing. It made international news. We don't like, obviously. No one in New Zealand likes when New Zealand's in the news negatively, particularly for comments like that. I mean, it's just unnecessary. Yeah. Hopefully he comes out and apologises for it. I highly doubt it. It's been nearly a week and there's been nothing. So, yeah, pretty unclassy from Winston there. Let's get into the big news, though. From The Guardian. The Pacific island country of Nauru has changed its name to the Republic of Naoero, its president said, matching the spelling and pronunciation of its national language. The country's international code will change from NRU to NRO, and its people will be known as Dai Nero instead of Nauruan. So the previous pronunciation was Nauru. It's now Naoero. Fascinating stuff. Nauru's obviously a massive regional power. They've got a population of 12,000 people. They're the world's third smallest country. It obviously really matters what's going on there. But why does this come up? I suppose because there's a few little things that's causing a bit of controversy in the Pacific. It's pretty active for a country of 12,000 people. It made a statement on its official channel, otherwise known as Facebook, the other day, saying that it has withdrawn its recognition of the Republic of South Ossetia and Abkhazia as independent states. So these are occupied areas of what is most often recognized as Georgia, occupied by Russia, I believe, because they've got a large Russian population. Something like that. But they've mainly caused controversy, more so than that. I don't think most people know what an Abkhazia is. They've caused controversy by planning to open a embassy in Jerusalem. Why does a country of 12,000 people need an embassy in Jerusalem? Probably because it's a boon for Israel. It's probably not really a Republic of Naoero decision there. It's, they're wanting what little support they can get from any country they can have, really. And I mean, these sort of stories, they don't mean much, but New Zealand is supposed to be the protector of the Pacific along with Australia. I believe Nauru has a much closer relationship with Australia, but at the end of the day, we should be doing everything we can, should we not, to support these Pacific Island states. And it's not that they can't make their own independent decisions, but if they feel like they need to do things that are fundamentally silly, such as, I mean, holding an embassy in Israel is just silly. Israel should be a completely insignificant nation on the other side of the world in the middle of a region that they have no real interest in except energy. Why would an island of 12,000 people need an embassy in Israel? How are they even going to staff it in a country of 12,000 people? I think they're subsidised by Australia, so I guess that's how. I mean, they should only really need representation in their immediate region, I suppose. It's not that they shouldn't. They can do what they want, but I mean, I suppose the United States, China, Australia, New Zealand, and their Pacific neighbours would be the most relevant places to hold embassies. Again, this is a country of 12,000 people. It's the third smallest country in the world, and it's opening an embassy in the middle of nowhere. It's almost an embarrassment for New Zealand that they're doing this. Funny little story that. Let's get on to youth voter enrolment quietly collapsing the same day. And obviously at the same time, same day enrolment is gone. So 18 to 24-year-old enrolment sits at 53% at the end of June, according to Newswire and RNZ. That rate was 70% in 2011 and 60% in 2023. So obviously we're trending down. All age enrolment is 89%, up on the last two elections, according to Newswire. Election day is obviously 7th of November, but enrolment closes 13 days out of the election on 25 October. The same day and election day enrolment was abolished under the most recent Electoral Amendment Act, I believe proposed by ACT, and passed in 2025. 110,000 people enrolled on the same day of election in 2023. So I said 110,000 people. That's a lot. In 2023, 33% of 18 to 19-year-olds enrolled or updated details during the voting period. 48% for young Māori, according to the spin-off. In 2020, 18 to 24-year-old enrollment was 78% versus 99.8% for 50 to 59-year-olds, according to the Human Rights Commission. Nearly 45% of everyone who failed to enroll in 2020 was aged 18 to 24, also according to the Human Rights Commission. Of roughly 600,000 special votes in 2023, 300 to 350,000 people estimated came from people not enrolled or not updated, according to the Ministry of Justice. I mean, this is all just Attorney General Judith Collins found the bill inconsistent with the Bill of Rights Act and warned that 100,000 plus people could be disenfranchised. The caveat is that the disenfranchisement figures are modelled estimates, and the enrolment during voting period statistics show reliance on late enrolment, not a direct measures of votes lost. So you can enroll late and choose not to vote. I mean, at the end of the day, it's concerning. Our generation is incredibly underrepresented in policy and politics itself. You're seeing that issues that are relevant to young people, such as the price of housing, such as the job market, are not being prioritised. We can't expect representation if you're not voting and you're not enrolling. At the end of the day, it's hard to follow politics, but you cannot complain that you are unserved by a system that you don't participate in. If you participate in a system and it doesn't serve you, there's something to be shown for that, something to be said for that. Then you can say the system's broken. A lot of people would want to say the system's broken now, and probably it is, but when only 53% of 18 to 24-year-olds are as of last month, were enrolled to vote. You cannot blame anyone other than the 47% of 18 to 24-year-olds who aren't enrolled. We are from an incredibly small generation. You have to remember that too. We're the smallest generation. I mean, it just trends down. The boomers are large, they're dying out. Gen X is large, but people are having less and less kids, which means, a third of our generation that would have been here had the birth rate not decreased aren't here. We're down on I guess manpower to vote for our interests. So it's crucial for our generation to vote. You can't sit around. It's time to take action, and it's time for our generation in general to stand up. We live in a system that doesn't serve us. That sucks. But we need to do something about it. We can't sit around and whinge and moan and then do nothing. It's time to do something. You're mad about AI? Do something. You're mad about the surveillance state? Do something. You're mad about the economy? You're mad about not getting jobs? Do something. Vote is the bare minimum that you can do. And I'm no one to lecture you. I'm a nobody. I don't know much, but I know that you should do something. It's not all we can do, but before we try and do something drastic, why don't we just do our democratic dues of voting? It's that simple. It's that simple. And the odds are we all vote, and look, the older generations are larger than us. Maybe they still vote for themselves. We can still try, and then we can go from there. At the same time, how can older generations try and support us? If they're inwardly focused, let's just say they're inwardly focused, they care about this. How can they try and support us if we don't say anything? If we sit around and complain and don't actually tell them, though, how they can practically help, don't show them what we think could be better. We just sit there and complain and say that we want more money and say that we want housing to be cheaper. Of course we want housing to be cheaper. You need to put the pen to the paper, guys. Enroll to vote. If it's the only thing you do in the month of October, enroll to vote. November 7th, get out there and vote, because we need to turn this ship around before it hits the iceberg, before we get to our parents' age and we don't inherit anything but a mountain of debt from the government, and we're still renting. Most of our entrepreneurs are successful, and people have moved overseas because there's no support here from the government. Our tall poppy syndrome, that has to stop. That has to stop. Tall poppy syndrome, someone does well, good on them. It's not about, it's good to do well. We need to, there's a difference between banter, which is great. I love banter. I take it too far all the time. In fact, anyone who knows me knows that. But tall poppy syndrome is ridiculous. The government doesn't support our own aspiring young people, and we still put them down, even if it's for shits and giggles. It's still crap. It's still crap when more praise, more support, more loving each other, because maybe we don't have money, but we can still love each other. We can still celebrate our culture. We can still celebrate New Zealand's success. You get fed up with these international corporations. Encourage New Zealanders. There are so many young aspiring New Zealanders. There are so many people taking the risk, doing amazing things. We should back them 100%. Team New Zealand all the way. Let's get on to the next story, which is that which just displays this. Regional youth not in education, employment, or training, otherwise known as NEET, not in education, employment, or training. There is a crisis in this. The national NEET rate for 15 to 24-year-olds rose to 14.4%. So that's basically 15% of us who don't have a job, aren't training for anything, and aren't in education. Now, it's fine to take a break from time to time, but at the end of the day, um, we need to stand up and look up for ourselves. And we're in a country that's in severe debt. Uh, we have a safety system that's there to support you, and that's an amazing thing. But you need to work at some stage in your life. You need to pay into the system, because at the end of the day, when the country defaults, when we waste all our money on the older generations and we take more and more loans to pay for their, it's not even luxuries, but it really is, given the state of our debt. We won't have that. Our welfare state is going to be cut, because we are not going to have the money, because we're going to be in so much debt we can't afford it. So for the portion of the 14.4% who are just choosing not to work, I'd really encourage you to pick up work, or at least do something for your community. Get out there. For yourself, you need to do something. For the community, do something. Make someone smile. If you make one person smile in your day, it'll make your day a ton better. Interestingly, young women aged 20 to 24 hit 20% not in education, employment, or further training. There's rural districts, Opotiki and Kawerau have the highest percentage of NEET. Many regions saw their NEET rate jump up by more than a third in a single year. There's warnings that these rural regions already face population decline, skill shortages, and economic pressure, pointing to a dangerous cycle for regional New Zealand. Local drivers cited seasonal kiwi fruit work and staying home to care for whānau instead of formal work or study. There were 163,000 unemployed nationally in the March 2026 quarter. Under 25s are having it particularly tough. There was a point in our history where less than 50 people one year were unemployed. The fact that this many people, looking after your whānau, fine. Seasonal kiwi fruit work, they're working, but there are a lot of people who just cannot find work. And particularly in rural New Zealand, which, that's a tough one. What are you going to do to support rural New Zealand? This isn't also for us to answer, right? We elect representatives to serve our country and to solve the issues that are relevant to us. If 40+% of people in Opotiki and Kawerau, young people, cannot find a job, why is this not a national concern? Whatever it is that brings jobs to these regions, and I'm no planner, I'm no expert. Why can't we look into it? And I'm planning to get Alliance in later in the year. They're discussing a Ministry of Works. Maybe that's not such a bad idea. Maybe the government could provide jobs. They're probably not going to be great labour. It's probably temporary labour until you find somewhere in the private sector that pays better and upskills you better. But if the government can offer on-site training and employment, maybe that's the answer. But I'm not sure. The worst hit districts already have population decline and they have skill shortages. So maybe the government should be investing in skill opportunities for rural New Zealand. Not sure how that would look, but this obviously cannot continue. Let's jump into Luxon's comments on MMP. Now, this is just silly to even listen to him, because obviously the two big parties, the right and left wing, Labour and National, both don't like MMP because it has restricted the size of their parties. We have had more options to choose who we support, which you've seen the Greens surge. You've seen ACT and NZ First surge. Te Pāti Māori sort of stayed around the same. They've had a bit of an increase, I believe. Apologies for that. We had recording issues, but anyway, ultimately, Labour and National are the two right and left wing to the same bird. They both want power. They both want to be the largest parties in Parliament, and ultimately, both their ideas end up pretty similar. If you want new and further develop or different ideas, then you have to vote for one of the fringe parties. Because, Labour and National, left and right to the same bird. Labour does pursue further left policies, but they're still pretty similar to National. The biggest thing you can see, the right was very frustrated over co-governance, to which National has essentially continued, if not for ACT and New Zealand First shopping everywhere that they can afford with their political will. So Luxon's promised to hold a referendum on MMP. He's trying to make out that MMP is the source of New Zealand's inefficiency. It's having these little parties in government that really affects us. Obviously, it's not. If you're on the right and you wanted to see a shift that way, you can say, well, if we just had National in, nothing would have changed. And if you're on the left, and you can see with Labour, especially this current Labour post Ardern, I think if you just saw Labour in, you'd be pretty unsatisfied as well. You'd want the Greens in to actually give you a shift to the left, whether you are Social Democrat, whether you believe in, I suppose, a more communist approach, whether you believe in even a more left capitalist approach. Really, Greens are the only one offering, fully new ideas, fully different ideas. I'm reading his comments. Put National back in more strongly so they can avoid working with some Yahoo and numpty in cabinet. He made this comment. It caught the caucus off guard. They came out, they said that they knew about it, from Nicola Willis to half the cabinet said they knew about it, but it's just bizarre. He blindsided his coalition partners. MMP said it's inexplicable and obviously a power grab, to which it obviously is. It's hard to argue that. Winston said the two old parties are losing their grip on power and they want to change the system in favour of their failing fortunes. Again, Winston's got to be right on this one. The democratic decision of the populace has been we have chosen as a people to vote for new ideas and new parties. National and Labour. I can't go too hard on Labour, but they would want the same thing. But at least National wants power in themselves. They don't like this. They're trying to frame to National voters that if it were just National in, they would have got so much more done. But arguably, most of the things that have gotten done in this government haven't been National policies. National's policies have been pretty stupid. You saw what has National done? Well, they did that ban on tap and go surcharge, which, instead of banning Visa charging it, or just allowing it to keep going, they ban the shop from charging it. So the shop needs to cover the costs of having that system that Visa charges them. So now, instead of just having the surcharge built in only for PayWave, it's going to be built in for everything under the assumption that most people will charge PayWave. So National has essentially made everything more expensive for everybody because there's no way around that surcharge now. It's going to be built into everything. And the only real winner from this policy is Visa. So who's National serving? Are they trying to serve the people? Are they explicitly trying to serve big corporates like Visa and that's their goal? Or they're either incompetent or borderline treasonous with decisions like that. Probably a bit of both. probably a bit of both. They're probably not serving the people, and they're probably not the most competent people. I mean, that was the whole point of bringing Christopher Luxon in, right? This new competent business leader. He's going to come and he's going to sort everything else. And he has been an abrupt failure. I mean, what has Christopher Luxon done other than shine his bald head? I mean, he's done nothing. He fucks up communicating with the public. He fucks up communicating with caucus. Half his office quit because they just can't stand the twit. There's a rhyme for you. Dr. Seuss, you know, you couldn't even call him Dr. Evil because he's just inefficient at no matter what he tries to do. He's appealing to no one except the senile national voter who has blue running through their veins and has voted it their whole life. There's a lot of lovely people who have voted National their whole life, but guys, you need to question yourselves. What are we doing here? I mean, David Seymour came out and called it an interesting idea, but noted voters were pretty strongly against changing MMP last referendum in 2011. And Luxon may have not thought it through what he's saying. I guess ACT thinks that they can get enough of a money dump from their voters to be successful under a first-past-the-post system. You'd imagine a bit like Reform UK for anyone who follows British politics. We've mentioned this before. Seymour also argued the 2020-2023 single-party majority showed the risks of moving away from MMP. And he says that New Zealand's 5% threshold has kept it from fragmentation as seen in Israel or Italy. I mean, this is true. So you have to have 5% to get into Parliament. We've seen this with Opportunity, who I'm going to touch on later about our guest, David Ebb. I thought over, is it undemocratic to have the 5% threshold? And I think it is. I think having no threshold and just dividing up based on seats is more democratic. But I don't think that means it's better because, I mean, you can see with these extreme multi-party democracies, particularly seen in Europe, which we touched last episode on Belgium, when you have a massive coalition or a massive amount of little parties, you need to form 7-party coalitions. The time to form your policy document on what you want to prioritize takes ages, and ultimately it creates a fractious and unstable government. So having the 5% barrier is probably, although an undemocratic, probably, and I don't know this, a good thing for the stability of the country and for the governance of the country, albeit restricting the democratic representation of fringe voices. So that's my take. MMP works, but it needs the 5% threshold. It may not be the best system, but it's probably better than first past the post. I think the real question with MMP has to be local representation. We used to have far more local representation with first past the post. You had to truly engage with your local electorates. I think although we still have electorate MPs, I just don't see this as the case. Most people vote along party lines. This is why you can see in electoral votes, it's still first past the post system there. It's still predominantly Labour and predominantly National. And I don't know if it'll ever change from that. And that's what would happen to the whole country. I mean, you would have ACT, the Greens, Te Pāti Māori, National and Labour in government. You'd have no New Zealand First, who are only in on the party vote, and you'd have no top. It's obviously, yeah. I think MMP needs some way to encourage MPs to represent their electorate better. I don't think that cabinet members are able to do this, so perhaps cabinet members should be encouraged to be on the list, which often is the case, but also often not. I mean, Christopher Luxon has an electorate. You know, the Prime Minister's not going to represent his electorate at all. He's too busy representing the country. He just does not have time for that. So it seems a bit silly, really. I'm not sure how you can enforce that, but definitely I think needs to be looked into. There's been 2 elections on MMP, a non-binding referendum in 1992 and a binding one 1993, and it passed both. So, I mean, it's been a long time since that election, but it's a power grab. Let's move on. Pay increases are falling behind inflation. Stats NZ shows most New Zealanders aren't getting pay rises that keep up with inflation. Salary and wages rose 2% over the year to June and 0.6% over the quarter, which is well behind the annual CPI inflation, consumer price index that is, of 4.1%. Prices rose roughly twice as fast as wages. The average ordinary time hourly wage is now $44.62, with the average weekly earnings being $1,730. Private sector's gone up 2% annually, public sector 1.7%. You can break it down on some industries that are doing all right. Wood and paper manufacturing having a bigger rise, still behind inflation, but that's 3%. And then construction, electricity, gas, wastewater, waste, in the 1% with a jump up. So, the average take-home weekly pay is rising partly because people are working more hours, not because rates are climbing. And as such, you can see there's now, as we said earlier, 171,000 people out of work, which is up from 100,000. Pay is low and employment is low. What is the solution? Obviously, some sort of action, and we are not getting it from National. I'd argue we're not getting it from Labour. So gloomy. Let's touch on TOP's polling surge. So TOP, they got to 8% in their last poll. This most recent poll, they're at 6.1%. So that's 2 polls where they've made it into government. Luxon's ruled out working with Opportunity, as we've said, calling them a high tax party. I mean, we're gonna have a sit down and we're gonna talk to Daniel Ebb. TOP is an interesting case. Their tax project seems high. Their land tax, and then also they've got the citizens' income, so a minimum of $370 a week for everyone to earn. That's obviously a socialist policy. Is it good? Is it bad? I don't know. Does Peter Thiel, the billionaire founder of Palantir from the US, who's a New Zealand citizen, really need $370 a week coming in from the government? And when you say it's coming in from the government, for people who pay tax, there's a rate, there'll be a ratio, but for a lot of people, it's just a tax rebate. So you could just lower taxes for, lower income earners more than higher income earners, and you replicate the policy whilst not paying staff to do the redistributionary measures of working out everyone's wage and then reimbursing them money set based on what their wage is. So it's a strange one from TOP there. Why not just adjust the tax bracket? I guess at the end of the day, it's a similar result, but we're in debt, so people are short on money. This is true. But the nation's short on money. This is also true. We spend more money giving money back to us that we pay to them in the first place, in most cases. What's the benefit? We get more money, but we pay money to get that money back because people are processing it. It's just strange. But maybe it's a good idea. I mean, maybe I think the biggest proponent for this is AI. AI is going to put a lot of people out of a job in the short run. There's a lot of theories as to what the result of AI will be. You have your own. AI. Okay, let's go with sort of a theory. Let's match it to the Industrial Revolution. AI comes in it throws a lot of people out of a job. A lot of people. Short run, joblessness is high. Medium run, there's starting to be jobs, the pay isn't good. Long run, there's new jobs, differently skilled, either higher skilled jobs, new lower skilled jobs, and everyone's employed. You see this in the Industrial Revolution. Everyone's hand weaving. For example, factories come in, they start making clothes with machines. A few people go work in the factories. It's terrible conditions. The pay is bad. A lot of people go there, but there's only limited jobs they actually need in the factories, so a lot of people don't have a job. Come to today and sort of, let's not go to today because you get to sweatshops. Let's go to, I guess, before the start of globalism, you have factories up and going with low-skilled workers in there. Their conditions and their pay is pretty equivalent to those of hand weavers. Their time in the factories are being reduced. Arguably, their quality of life is pretty similar and or better, potentially worse, but pretty similar to it was before. And now you've also got artisanal craftsmen who still sew the old way. They make designer clothes and they get paid a whole lot more. I guess the big GDP number goes up. I mean, the Industrial Revolution brought a lot of bad, but also a lot of good things like sanitation, ultimately. But most of the good things for most of the population came later. But let's just look at employment. Everyone's employed. Most people lose their job. Some people get terrible jobs. Eventually it settles to a new median where most people have a job again. Maybe that's what will happen with AI. Maybe AI will replace people and there will be no new jobs. There's bound to be an artisanal faction or market startup that values human-produced work over AI. So a small batch of humans will be being paid more for their work, I believe. But the real argument is, what do we do in the short, medium-term run where a lot of people are out of a job? Maybe citizens' income is the answer to that. But then we also have the benefit. So I suppose the citizens' income is kind of like having a benefit, but you get it no matter whether you work or not, whereas that's a big issue with the benefit, where people get a job, they realize they can get easier money on the benefit, so they choose just to go back on it. Yeah, I don't know. There's no right or wrong answer there, but it's a discussion that needs to be had publicly. And I guess that's what Opportunity is providing. So it'd be very interesting to talk to Daniel Ebb about this on the weekend. Let's discuss. Let's end this on a discussion about Daniel Ebb. So Daniel Ebb is the top deputy leader. He stands alongside Kwale Wong, their leader. His bio says that he's a social impact founder in the food and fibre sector. His background runs a lot through communications. From his foundation, he founded a communications agency. He ran an open farm day project to bring urbanites to the farm to see it. He won a Nuttyfield scholarship. He provides rural media commentary in some farming mags. Basically, they're all built around progressive reform in food, farming, and politics. I'm going to ask him a bit more about what that means. There are some ideas he's put forward. He's put forward a few ideas around food. He was proposing, for example, he doesn't think we can do anything about the supermarket duopoly. And he has reasons why, which he'll probably articulate. But you can see his stuff. There's a article and stuff from him about that pre-candidacy. He thinks that rather than trying to bring in a competing supermarket, trying to have a domestic and international rate, or any of these ideas, that we should just build rural or local supply chains of food. So basically farm to a local place to buy produce, instead of having that middleman, which is the supermarket. Just goes basically farm to shop to plate. You could also argue that we had fruit and veg and butcher stalls which did exactly that, but they got undercut by the supermarkets, which is probably what I would argue. You can buy home kill, but like I couldn't get home kill. I've got a freezer the size of this with enough space. I mean, it's just my living situation doesn't cater to it. A lot of people couldn't afford the initial cost of thousands of dollars on a home kill. It'll save them money long term, but it's an interesting take that I'll look forward to hearing him articulate. He's running in the North Auckland electorate of Kaipara Mahurangi. He calls himself a red herring, with a traditionally urban-based Opportunity Party and the rural farming, him being the rural farming face of the party. Farmers Weekly framed his entry as a high-profile rural commentator and former contributor stepping up into frontline politics. I think it's worth noting, and I might confirm this, I think he's definitely from the progressive side of farming, and there's obviously a big conservative faction there. So his ideas around farming will really matter for a rural vote for Top. That's not what Top's really going for, but if he's deputy, then clearly it's in their interest somewhere. So, yeah, we'll ask him about that, I suppose. He's denied that Opportunity is a centre-left party. I'm going to ask him about that because honestly, their universal income and their land tax, it's not a bad thing to be left-wing, but those are socialist policies. So my interview with him may even be quite right-wing leaning, asking him kind of in what way do they appeal to right-wing voters. I think definitely a lot of Top's policies are appealing, particularly to young people, but how articulated a lot of ideas are, I'll question, and how they are centrist, I guess I'll question as well, being a centrist myself. But I want to hand it to Opportunity that I like the underpinning, personally I like the underpinning ideas of, for example, lowering housing prices, ideas that serve young people. I do appreciate, support these ideas. How they result, I don't know. Are his policies in response to these ideas, are Opportunities quietly wrong, and her party's ideas, will they induce a positive and beneficial and better reality for young New Zealanders? I don't know, but a lot of the underpinning reasons for why they've come out with these policies, I personally do like. So it'll be an interesting interview. I'm going to try and ask some hard questions. He's going to be sitting where I am right now, and I'm going to be over there on the couch in the flat. It might make him a bit uncomfortable to be in a student flat. Maybe it won't, but we're not a flashy studio like he may be used to with doing a bit of a media tour. I'm talking to you with a phone on a tripod and a mini microphone in my hand, and that is the setup. Otherwise, we're sitting in my lounge. So we try to be a bit more down to earth. We try and we are young people. That's what Prosper is. We are young students. I don't know what the right ideas are, but I know that the current ideas don't serve Kiwis. So let's ask. Let's hold them accountable, and rather than operating off the mainstream narrative, let's ask the questions ourselves. And if you have any questions you'd like to ask Daniel, send me a message. DM Prosper on Instagram, any of the social medias. Email us, prospernz_otago@gmail.com. And we'll see you in the interview. Have a great week.